Is the economy showing signs of cracking? Markets seem relatively stable, but could something be lurking under the hood? Joining us today from the floor of the CME, Phil Streible, Senior Market Strategist for RJO Futures. Phil, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of ground to cover today. Let's start by looking at some numbers out Wednesday. Weaker than expected retail sales came out, and gold climbed 0.5%. Do you think recession fears are heightening here? Is economic data becoming worse or not? How do you see it?
Yeah, if you look at the macro data, we're all seeing weakening across the board, almost in all aspects of the economic data. And, the other problem is that we're also seeing weaker inflation. So that's what's kind of weighing in. That's why gold futures aren't pushing up, breaking through 1,500 and then just smashing through that higher level at 1,522.
And we're going to talk about gold a little bit more in depth in a second, but I want to focus on politics with you right now, Phil. And last week, President Trump met with China's vice premier, and Trump called it the greatest and biggest deal ever made for our great patriot farmers. How do you think investors are taking this phase one deal, and are we seeing real signs of a de-escalation here?
Okay, so from a trading aspect, when I see these dates come up or these important meetings, really, I remember we deal with futures, so it's speculation. It's not like buying and investing in gold and holding on to it forever. So from a speculative standpoint, when you come up into these meetings, Donald Trump has an agenda to come out and say that it's a great deal, it's going to be made and everything. And then what happens is the equity markets rise, gold futures set back on there. So from a speculative standpoint, coming into one of these meetings, you really want to be out of the market coming into that day. But afterwards, once the devil's always in the details, that's when gold futures start to rise back up again. The S&P 500 steps out. So, consider that your time out on the field whenever we go into one of these meetings.
Okay. And what about the potential escalation of risks in the Middle East, Phil? Definitely the news item of the day here. The U.S. has ordered the remaining forces out of northern Syria, and Turkey has continued its push into Kurdish territory, rejecting a ceasefire call from the U.S. Can this escalate out of hand?
The deal is that we haven't seen gold have any kind of strength on geopolitics whatsoever. It's been like that for quite a while. Really, you got to look at other commodities like the oil market, like the dollar, like bonds are shorting the S&P, but gold has not benefited from it. However, I do believe there's going to be an escalation. I don't think you can trust the Kurds working, the Syrian government working with the Kurds and Trump or Turkey backing off. Everyone kind of standing their ground and operating in everyone's best interest. I just don't think it's going to happen. So it is going to turn into a messy situation there. So you would warrant maybe some longer term dated options on that.
And Phil, just to dig a little deeper into your gold call here, when we had talked back in August, you had mentioned that $1,600 gold by the end of year was a possibility. Are you sticking to that given everything that's happening on the global front right now?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think 600. It's not to say that it couldn't be hit. We could quickly see things turn worse. We could see the equity markets break down fast. The macro picture, like I said, is terrible. It'd be interesting to see how the Federal Reserve, if they aggressively cut rates, then gold can do it. But it's going to need to take a lot more momentum behind it. Those ETF holdings, those are back up at near record highs. So people are piling into it, but it just doesn't have that velocity right now of a massive extension up based on what we're dealing with at the moment.
All right. Finally, Phil, speaking about ETFs, we're seeing cannabis stocks collapsing right now with the Horizons marijuana ETF down 50% over the last year. Bitcoin also stalling here. So are we going to finally start seeing speculative money flow back into gold and silver?
Well, we could be. We saw also the cryptocurrencies pulling back. I think that gold and silver, those are real believable assets for me. Things that have stood the test of time, and they've proven themselves time and time again. I would much rather have exposure to the gold and silver rather than a cryptocurrency or a cannabis stock.
All right. Being loyal to your gold and silver. Phil Streible, thank you so much for joining us from the floor of the CME. And thank you for watching. We will be headed to the 1-to-1 conference in New York City Thursday and Friday, so be sure to stay tuned for all our content from that show. Thanks for watching.